All right, welcome back to looking at concepts and principles within the Christian Kenpo system. We're going to be looking at the technique Deflecting Doom from Yellow Belt. And once again, this is a now attack. Punches, kicks, knives, clubs, and guns. This is a green attack zone. Going from 12 to either 9:30 or 2:30 on the clock is the green zone. Some of the concepts and principles that we're going to highlight and use are the lesser deflection block, pinning and pressing check, and what we like to call choo-choo train is the pass-through chamber to the elbow in Deflecting Doom. First of all, let's look at the method, the lower half motion for Deflecting Doom. Once again, we want to create space. Distance is our friend. If we've looked at the last technique, Dominating Spear, we used a simple step back motion. Now we need to create more distance because the catalyst and intent is a longer weapon. It's a leg in this case. We need to create more space. So we're actually going to use a push drag to get away from the line of the attack. And in fact, if Jarrett can pass me one of the sticks, here's the line of the attack. I need to get off of this line. I need to allow the train to come through with all of its force. I do not want to be on the receiving end of this step through right kick. Whether it's a thrust kick or whether it's a ball kick, I don't want to be there. So the method is to shift weight to flexion. I'm going to step to a zone of sanctuary, which in this case is going to be my 730. I'm going to push drag off the line of the attack, and now I'm parallel. Now I have created, if Jared can pass me another stick, a parallel line. I have nudged my line, and now this is a parallel line of defense. Here's the line of attack. Here's my line of defense. As I step off of the line, now I'm going to want to come back in and affect and dominate my opponent. I'm going to use a step drag back in onto the line of the attack to defend. Once again, I'm on the line of the attack. I want to get off. Shift weight, push drag, step drag. Push drag, step drag. When we talk about this technique, we also need to talk about what our hands are doing. We often talk about point of origin. There's going to be a separate video on this, but point of origin is simply wherever my hands are is where they begin either their defense or their offense. In this particular situation, I want to preposition my arms. Let's say I'm getting into an altercation with an individual, and I don't know if they have a weapon. So I'm going to use a neutral defensive position. Notice the outside of my arms are towards my opponent. Why am I not putting the front of my arms towards my opponent? If my opponent had a knife or some type of sharp weapon, a slice or a deep gouge to this portion, the ulnar side of my arms, can result with me not being able to form a weapon or to grab or to grasp something. So I want to present him with a less deadly or lethal or effective position if he does have a weapon. I can take a beating to the outside of my arms and still be able to grasp and to grab and to form a weapon if need be. So instead of the traditional, oh no, I don't want any problems in presenting the outside of the arm, inside of the arms, I want to show the outside of the arms. It's still a defensive position. It's still a neutral position that doesn't show aggression in the case that somebody's got their cell phone camera rolling while you're in this fight. It shows a defensive position in which you're getting out of the way. This is where our arms are going to start in this method. Once again, I start the technique. I'm going to shift weight. I'm going to get off of the line of the attack. And this is where the lesser deflection block comes in. Instead of the traditional greater deflection block, your traditional downward block, where it's force meeting force, I want to ride the force and to manipulate my opponent's depth at the same time. So from point of origin, I'm going to shift weight, push off. My hand is just going to drop from point of origin and slide and hammer that leg and split his depth. If Jarek comes up for a moment, and Jarek is going to come up and just give me a knee. Here's the intent of the kick. If I were to use a traditional downward greater deflection block, I actually create an axis of spin that can create unintended consequences for me. If I use the traditional greater deflection block, it spins around and he does a spinning back kick. Or the greater deflection block sets up a spinning back fist or a back elbow that I'm not prepared for, what we call unintended consequences, versus the lesser deflection block places his foot on that 730 line, which allows me then to respond. Thank you, sir. I'll grab you in a minute. And once again, the lesser deflection block places my opponent where I want him rather than creating unintended consequences with the greater deflection block. Let's talk about for a moment our weapons to targets, and then I'll bring Jarek out. Starting from point of origin, hey man, I don't want any problems. Here comes the kick. Shift weight, push drag. As the lesser deflection comes down and places his foot on that 730 line, as I push drag back in, his intent comes in, which is the right thrust or jab punch. I'm going to, as I step drag back in, I'm going to pinning, pressing, check that arm down and in or down and up, depending on the height of the opponent. This is where true tailoring comes in from the American Kenpo system. As I push and press that in, I'm going to rotate counterclockwise as the mastoid of my opponent is presented, using contouring of his arm and fitting of the weapon to the mastoid. I'm going to borrow Jarek for a moment and do it from this direction first. He's going to gauge leg and show that if I don't move, as he steps forward with that kick, I'm going to get plastered. Let's scoot this way a little bit. Hey man, I don't have any problems. Lesser deflection. Notice I didn't go far. I went 1 foot length away. I created distance as my friend and created the parallel line. As he comes up with that secondary punch, here is where the pinning, pressing check comes in. I'm going to parry, pin and press into his body. I'm going to use contouring and fitting to go up his arm, the mastoid, either to the mastoid or I could go to the maxillary hinge of the jaw. Back up. Hey man, I don't want any problems. Lesser deflection. As he comes in, I'm going to parry it away in an elbow. Once again, let's do that from a different direction. And instead of having him punch, I'm going to show what it looks like if it's just the kick. Scoot one step that way. There. He's going to gauge leg again. Show that if I don't move, he's going to kick me. Hey man, I don't want any problems. I place him where I want to. Step drag back in. Pin and press the arm even if he's not attacking with it. I don't want any unintended consequences of an upward elbow or an outward elbow that I wasn't expecting. Pin and press for that check. Rotate either to the maxillary hinge in this case or the jaw. Now what happens for the kids, go ahead and come over here for a moment, Jared. If it's a smaller to taller proposition, that the defender is smaller and the attacker is taller. After the foot comes down from the lesser deflection, and let's say this punch does come up, but he's taller, I'm going to need to tailor. I'm going to, need to parry, but I'm not going to be able to reach his mastoid or his maxillary hinge. So as I step back in, oh hey, look at what's right here. Barbecue sauce, bacon. I got a rack of ribs right here that just need some barbecue sauce. So if I'm smaller, I'm going to parry it away and use an inward elbow or a down and inward elbow to those ribs to separate them, rather than going to the mastoid or the maxillary hinge. An option for tailoring if you're teaching this technique to smaller students. Once again, thank you, Jarek. So once again, what is our method? Push, drag, step, drag. What is the catalyst and intent? The catalyst is the kick. The intent is that punch. The weapons to target are lesser deflection to the outside of the knee, causing frictional pull to place him where I want him to go. The pinning pressing check to prevent unintended consequences. And the inward elbow to either the maxillary hinge or the mastoid. What are the concepts and principles that are in this technique is a defensive position, the now attack, the green zone attack, the pinning pressing check, and what we call the choo-choo train, going from our pass-through chamber to initiate the elbow. Once again, lesser deflection comes right up to the pass-through chamber, is the point of origin for the elbow. I've been Chris. Glad that you guys are joining us and interacting. Hopefully you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure that you learn these concepts and principles, understand them, and then eventually teach them. See you next time. Bye.